right. Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over the forearm, anterior with 3 compartments, and posterior with superficial as well as outcropping muscles. All right, so we are going to start with the anterior forearm. So go ahead and roll up your sleeve at home. Yes, you. Go ahead and take your hand like this, 4 fingers, put it on your medial epicondyle, and then just lay your fingers out. Where your thumb will naturally rest, which is kind of on the radius right there, is our first muscle of the superficial compartment of the anterior forearm. So basically the top, the front bit of the forearm, the first of our 3 compartments, okay? So right underneath the skin there, coming from the medial epicondyle, like all of these muscles do, which is why we stick that right there. The thumb is going to be the pronator, so it's going to do this. Pronator teres, okay? Medial epicondyle to the shaft of the radius. The radius is the bone that moves around the ulna, and if you were to draw an ulna like this, like you're looking down it like this, and the radius right here, so we're looking down the arm like this, so we're looking, this is the shaft, the radius is going to be moving around the ulna, and that's why it's called the radius, because if you were to make it go all the way around, what do we call the distance from the center of the circle? We call that the radius. So the reason I mention this is because it will become important to remember which bone is moving for a few muscles. And for the pronator teres, that's one of them. We know that the moving bone is the radius, and therefore that's the insertion, okay? Origin is the bone that doesn't move almost universally through the body, and insertion is the one that does. And so right here it's like, well, they're both moving. Well, the way that we look at it and think about it, and if you have an ideal world, it's the radius. If you actually hold your arm and rotate it, you'll see that the radius moves much more than the ulna. Okay, anyway, we're not going to spend that much time on all of our muscles. So we got pronator teres. Next, we have the flexor, because it flexes at the wrist. Carpi, because it goes to the metacarpal heads. So the first bit of the metacarpals, those sort of longer bones in here, not the little square ones, but the metacarpal heads. Flexor carpi radialis. It's on the radial side. So flexor carpi radialis, that is our next muscle. Medial epicondyle to the metatarsal heads of the first and second metatarsals. Moving on, we now have our third muscle, the Palmaris Longus. Yes. And the Palmaris Longus goes to kind of the center of the palm, and it connects not to a bone, but to fascia. And it's called the palmar aponeurosis. Okay? And so it just binds right there. 85% of people have this muscle. It's really wussy. 15% of people don't even have it. It doesn't make a difference to their strength in an appreciable manner. Okay? Next, our fourth and last muscle of the superficial compartment is the flexor carpi ulnaris. So it's going to flex. It is going to the carpal, metacarpal heads. And it's on the ulnar side, flexor carpi ulnaris. It is between the ring finger and pinky finger metacarpals, which the metacarpals are below those fingers. They don't actually go into the fingers, but that's how I like to remember it. So it's the third and fourth metacarpals of the fingers. So there we go. And technically the thumb has metacarpal too, so you could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But just point to the place on your hand, right there, right there, right there. Those are the 3 insertions so far. There, there, there. Okay? What I would do now at home is I would pause and say, what are the 4 muscles of the superficial compartment of the anterior forearm? Try to say the insertions and the names. And notice, I will say one more thing before we pause, is that notice that the names are all in the actions and the locations. Perhaps you've noticed this, perhaps you haven't. Either way, try to think of the locations and the actions and things as you're thinking about the muscle before you go for the name, because the name is just a string of Latin junk, because we don't speak Latin. But, oh, it does this. In our heads, that means flexion. Oh, it goes here. What's right there? That's really simple to remember, is to point to a place on your hand, and then you can try to remember what's underneath. Oh, those are carpal bones. Anyway, go ahead and review, and then we'll continue on with the next compartment. Great! All right. Hopefully that went well, and we will go ahead and quickly sketch up a hand here. Yes, that's a hand. With an arm, and we already did the superficial compartment, and so I'm going to go ahead and just circle those insertions. We have one right here, pronator teres. We have, that's a thumb, I swear. All right, there's the thumb. We have one right there, and one right there. And so with this picture, you can just remember the picture and where the circles are, and it's a very simple picture to try to remind you of the whole first compartment. Next compartment, I'm going to draw another arm and another hand. And this is the intermediate compartment of the anterior forearm. This has one muscle. This one had four. This one has one. And this one is going to go to right through here. And it's going to come from right about here, okay? It's going to reach down and insert into the fingers. This is going to be called, these are called digits, as well as fingers. You can call them digits. And so this is going to be the Flexor Digitorum, and since there are two digitorum muscles, we have to give this another word, Superficialis. Flexor Digitorum Superficialis. And that's the only one in this layer, so the middle layer only has one muscle. So Flexor Digitorum Superficialis, it inserts in the middle of the fingers, so on the heads of the phalanges. It does not go to the tip, however. All right, next layer is going, we're just going to move forward without a review because there's only one right there. Next layer, we have another arm, we have another thumb, we have some more fingers that are absolutely beautiful fingers. Starting to look more like a cactus. We have three muscles in the deep compartment of the anterior forearm. These muscles are, one is in the wrist. It goes from the ulna to the radius, and when it contracts, it drags the radius around. That is the Pronator Quadratus. It is named Quadratus because it is literally a square that is in between the two bones. Okay, it's a square or rectangle of muscle. Next, on the ulnar side of the shaft of the ulna, we are going to have, you can also think of it as finger side, we're going to have the Flexor Digitorum Profundus, and it goes down to the fingers. So we've got another one, but this guy's going to go all the way to the fingers. Okay? So Flexor Digitorum Profundus. Now, the really detailed thinker who is probably got their mind racing right now if you're thinking of this already, but if you did, great. The Superficialis kind of ends right here. I'm just going to let me draw that in blue. With the Superficialis, the Flexor Digitorum Superficialis kind of inserts roughly right here in all of these. And we try to have the Profundus come up and go further. It can't make it through there because this is like the wall of a tent coming down to be embedded into the bone. So the superficial one is already there, and the profound one is deeper, and so it can't get to the tips of the finger. So what actually happened is there is a separation, a hole punched in the tendon of the superficialis. And before that, the profundus is underneath. But as soon as the profundus gets to this like little hole, it actually goes outside, comes up out of the hole, and then continues over the top of the superficialis. And that happens roughly here. Okay? Punches out, and then that way it can go all the way to the tip of the finger, which is where it inserts. Okay? So the profundus has to punch a hole and go to the tip. All right, so we had quadratus, we had finger side, which would be the ulnar shaft, going ahead and originating with the flexor digitorum profundus that goes all the way to the ends of the fingers. It's called profundus both because it is deep and because it goes all the way to the end. All right, our third muscle is going to be thumb side, flexor pollicis longus. And it's going to come from the radius because that's the thumb side, radius. All right. And it's going to go all the way to the tip of the thumb because it is the longest. It is longer because it comes from far away, so it's a really long tendon. It's also longer because it goes all the way to the end. The brevis, which we will learn later, but I'm going to mention it now, is going to be coming from closer and ending closer. So it's closer on both ends. Longus is longer on both ends. Okay? Oh, that was really, like, that's a pun. Thumbs up. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, at this point, go ahead and pause the video and try to recall first the middle and deep layers, 1 muscle, 3 muscles, and then go back and do the first one, or you can do them in order or whatever. Just hit all of them, and yeah, ready, go. All right, hopefully that went well. And that is actually all the muscles of the anterior forearm. Congratulations.